material information actually means they have to. We do really think condition needs to be assessed early doors.
40% of those currently never move into their new home because a lot of these things could have been ironed out beforehand.
By an owner being aware of what a buyer surveyor is going to find at day one, that initial listing price can include what is going to come up later on.
Top performing agents are looking at, because they will invest thousands of pounds into a journey with a client. It gets to the point where this survey comes in or this problem comes up and they haven't foreseen it.
It will be the difference between being able to take the next steps or not. Houses now seem to be coming on because it's not been as bad as maybe they first thought, but it's that, oh, we'll wait and see.
I really want you to hear this. If you're an estate agent juggling a separate CRM, a standalone website, and these different marketing and prospecting tools, it's time to see what Iceberg Digital, the #1 operating system for estate agents, can do for you. At Giggs & Co. and within the Giggs Group, we use Iceberg, and it's absolutely out of this world. It's a complete ecosystem that makes your agency more efficient and more human focused. We've got AI scouts working behind the scenes, finding the full address details of properties on the market with other agents, matching them to our contact database, and even writing the email outreach. No human can keep up with that, and trust me, it's changed the game for us. So if you're prepared to make big changes to how you work and want to lead the way, just head over to iceberg-digital.co.uk today. And as a listener, use the code GIGSSHOW when you inquire for an exclusive perk on your setup. You're gonna love it. Welcome to the next episode of Estate Agent Showdown with me, Matt Giggs, and I have two awesome guests that have joined me today, and one who I know slightly better than the other, so we're going to dive right into the discussion. And to introduce yourself first, we have Barnaby Spence. Barnaby, do you want to tell us what you do?
So I'm a mortgage advisor, work closely with Matt for the Giggs & Company, own my own company now, went self-employed just over 6 months ago, so starting that journey now into that environment.
And you're doing really, really, really well. And you've been a mortgage advisor for how long?
Nearly 10 years now.
Brilliant. So we're going to really dig deep into some of those areas today. And I've got Brett Ray. So Brett, you have a company called Survey Shack.
I do indeed.
Tell us a little bit more about that and what you've done before.
Okay, so I'm Brett Ray. I'm a qualified surveyor, and I am one of the co-founders of Survey Shack. Survey Shack is a property inspection app that was built to improve the home buying and selling process by bringing condition insight to the start of the transaction.
Brilliant. I love that. And for estate agents, which is mainly the audience that are going to be watching this, when they hear the improvements of the transaction times, which is kind of what drew, I think you messaged me, I believe, after a podcast that I had with, or I messaged you, I can't remember which way round it was, with Amy Williams, a surveyor, when we was talking about the timeframes of sales and the challenges and maybe how these things can be improved. And obviously you came to light. I see your Instagram as well, around the importance of maybe vendors or agents considering getting surveys at the start of the process.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. Tell us more.
So the benefits to the estate agent are relatively clear. By those that are willing to adopt upfront condition insight, they increase the chances of a sale completing first time much closer to the agreed offer price. And obviously that is of great importance because it's how they protect their margin. And the other, how we are working with our agent partners is we can actually give them an additional revenue stream. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And the consumer is the beneficiary. It just so happens that we can make sure that agents benefit too.
Brilliant. I mean, let's dive into this just a little bit. And Barnaby, if you've got any questions as well, because I'm sure you've done your research, by the way, knowing you, it's really about how do we solve some of the big common challenges in the sales process, because you're quite right. There are a lot of hurdles to overcome, and this is quite a big one. How did it come about for you guys setting up this business? What was the point in which this was almost like begun? Where did it all begin?
So full disclosure, we do have a traditional surveying company, and that is how this all came about, because we are still front and center to seeing the problem. So basically, obviously we do buyers, home buyer type surveys, and level 2s, level 3s, and party wall works, which we won't get involved with. But the seller, we were going out to do inspections, and it just started to dawn on us that, like, the seller, apart from you guys, and yes, they do have legal representation, but it was just starting to dawn on us that surveyor side is all on the buyer. Yeah. It could well be they could have a condition report, as well as the mortgage lender may well send out a surveyor as well. So there's double chance that something's going to come up, and we just wanted to get in front of it. We wanted to do Scottish system, like a hybrid approach. We're not advocating yet that buyers don't get surveys. We still think they should. But by an owner being aware of what a buyer surveyor is going to find at day one, that initial listing price can include, if they wish, what is going to come up later on. Yeah. And that's.
Would you encourage that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, material information actually means they have to.
Yep.
So yes, I do think they should, and I do think it would be in their benefit. There is no reports even yet to show that if you were to be upfront and say, look, my roof's requires a bit of repair. Yeah. I've had, what we're trying to advocate is, like, when you see that, even if the seller can't afford to, make the repairs themselves, that's very feasible. But if they can obtain some estimates up front, and present those if necessary, instead of marketing a house at like 500,000 or 495 or whatever it may be, when you put that price forward and say we've marketed it at that price because of XYZ, it reduces the negotiation so much further down the road. Because a buyer can't then pull it up and say, I wasn't aware, it was greater than I thought. But no, it was disclosed right at the beginning. And on the surveying side for the buyer, if the buyer's already aware of it before they instruct a home buyer's report, really, all you want that surveyor to say is, the house is, or the flat is as you thought. It becomes a box ticking exercise as opposed to a defect finding analysis, and that is going to improve the chances of that sale completing first time with less renegotiations, which should mean less work for, like, follow-up work for yourselves, the lending side, the conveyancing side. So as much as the conveyancing, we do really think condition needs to be assessed early doors.
Yes, preparation and education, those are the key things. I deal with vendors all the time, and sometimes I feel like they rush to market. And often that's because they've seen something they really like. So there's that natural process of, I don't want fear of missing out and losing out on the property. And so they skip steps. So those steps could be, it's as simple as, I spoke to so many vendors that they've sold within 3 years of actually purchasing their first property. And they've probably done a home buyer's report on that property at that time. So it may not be perfectly valid, but at least it'll highlight a few things there for them. So they can at least go, we've sorted this, and this out on the property, but these are the things that are still, lingering things that we haven't sorted. And as you said there, Brett, then it's about pricing at that point, taking those things into consideration to go, you knew this all up front. So there's less time to renegotiate, because that process, we talk, 4.5 months in our area on average, which is shocking from sale agreed to actually, and then when you think 40% of those currently never move into their new home, because a lot of these things could have been ironed out beforehand. So I just think on an estate agent side, it's that education. You've got your vendors there. They're relying on you so much to impart that information to them, and maybe you hold them back a bit.
Well, it's not something that estate agents have probably recommended before. No. It's been talked about, loosely here and there, and I think we can dive into the detail of that because let's be brutally honest. When people think about having a survey on their own property before they go to market, there's probably a lot of trepidation around A, the cost, and then B, the type of information that's going to come off the back of it, and C, I've now got to disclose that. Is that going to be a negative element to the sale?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So, let's touch on the price first. I think that's probably been the biggest hurdle up until now, mainly because obviously there's nothing concrete to say they're going to sell their property. So a traditional survey, and I know RICS data probably shows, well, it might not be RICS, but data itself shows like home buyer reports averaging around £400 for a level 2. I don't think you'll get a good level 2 in London for close to £400. I know ours start at £600 upwards from the traditional side. So I don't know where or what the quality is of those lesser, or not lesser, but less expensive. Cheaper.
Yeah,
I do think they're lesser, to be fair.
Cheap.
I do think they're lesser.
Cheap always normally ends up a bit expensive at some point down the road.
Yeah. But, to put it on a seller to say, right, £750, £1,000, 50, whatever it may well be, to get a report that they may not sell their property, it's another cost that they just really could do without. Especially when you look at the quality of some of the home buyer reports that go out, which you guys will know as well as I do, they can be very defensively written, and they end up with quite a few referrals. You can make a list as long as your arm as to who else has to get involved after one of these surveys get done. Why would a seller want to be paying a lot of money for that to then be told you need to get a structural engineer, or you need to get a damp specialist or a roofing contractor? So that was where we came into it and thought, there's a gap. We need to make it affordable. We need to act as the surveyor in that mix. And that's what Survey Shack does. And then we can get them to the recommendation for a structural engineer, which may be all they needed in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's that element.
Okay, and just on that element then, because there are different levels of survey.
Yep.
Just for the viewer, what are those? Just in case nobody or any agents lived under a rock, but it's probably going to be better explained by you what those are.
So at the moment, we have our core products offered on the app stores. For that, they can be purchased by the consumer. They start at £40 for the core report, which they undertake the assessment themselves, and our algorithm and our work populates a report instantly and is shared with them. And they have the option to upgrade to speak to a surveyor if they need to. So it's really for those that just need final clarity but don't want the whole property surveyed, and the upgrade's approximately £100.
Yeah. Okay. And sorry, Barnaby, were you going to ask something?
I was going to say, like, the cost side of things, we often think of it the wrong way. But having gone through the process a year ago and not moved, we talked it up to be about £3,500 spent on two surveys on solicitor side of search for not actually moving. So when you're talking about cost to a vendor, again, it's about educating them about, this, as you said, is about preparing you, because if they do a report, which 9 times out of 10 they're going to do a survey, a home, at least a level 2, and they're going to find all the bits that you didn't want to. I had a report the other day from me and Joe in the office, 153 pages it was. A level 2 survey.
You'd have lost me after page 1, I think.
Exactly. But if you're a first time buyer looking at that, that's panic station, that is. And,
that's generally the impression that agents have, is that surveying reports are there to protect themselves, one, and B, scare the buyers off. And it's not that they've done that deliberately, but they can feel quite quite overwhelming for buyers, which is what you've just said. So I'm seeing this as an advantage with regards to the vendor doing it themselves, speaking to a surveyor. Is there another level beyond that? Or is it literally like, do you share images, videos? Is that how it works? And then you guys assess it with them over the phone?
Yeah. So we the upgrade to a surveyor support, which we call Genie, they can provide further images and video, which we'll analyze and we'll have a decent conversation with them. It will be really to get them to who they need next.
Yeah.
Because if it's something of a concern, 9 times out of 10, a surveyor is not going to hang their hat on it. They're going to pass that on to someone who's more qualified. So that was one of the reasons why we built out as we did. But the other thing we would touch upon as well in regards to buyers is, I think you said like 9 out of 10. That's incredible. I mean, we generally see far less of, and even the stats suggest that buyers, could be as little as 20% get, average home buyer reports. So that means there's a lot of buyers out there that are making offers uneducated, and then it causes issues later on because things come out in the wash. Yeah. We want to make it affordable. We were able to, we wanted buyers to be able to, have a good idea of the property they're looking at before they offer. Yeah. And that way they could, because we know what it's like. Sometimes you've got 2 or 3 in the mix. Which one is right? I mean, I have to pay quite a lot of attention now to the forums, and it's rather surprising the kind of financial commitment some of these buyers get themselves into to find out the property was never right for them.
Because of the work.
And then also it does sometimes, like you say, get scary for them because of the defensive way some of these reports are written. When they do get them done by they are sometimes concerning. And I read them online as well, and I'm wondering how they got to the final conclusion based on what they've said. And when you talk about these 150-page reports, so much of it is standard paragraphs. Yeah. I even see one the other day where the person hadn't even bothered to remove the duplicate standard paragraph. So you had 2 layered next to each other. And I was like, this person's paid for a professional report. It's clearly all standard paragraphs anyway. And then the person couldn't even be bothered. The surveyor couldn't be bothered to actually
So if you
check
have
it.
a 150-page report, how many pages are not standard? Difficult to say, I suppose.
Was it a level 2?
Yeah, it was a level 2. Yeah.
There would have probably been some elements. There should have been some elements that make it detailed to that property. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of our RICS reports, a lot of the pages in there are standard, and you fill them in. But I'm just seeing, and I'm not the only one. I mean, people commenting, other surveyors, but the level 2 is a report that is can be very populated by standard paragraphs. So basically, someone sees something.
Is there much value in a level 2?
I'm
because the next one's level 3, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a level 2's got its place.
Okay,
but I do think it depends who's doing it.
Yeah,
like our company and myself, I couldn't. If I was to do a level 2 on a property, by the time I've researched it properly, filled it all in, I would only be able to get 1 done in a day, and that means, and I would probably hopefully have it complete enough that I might just take a few hours the next morning, and I could probably send that out. The companies that are knocking out 2 or more a day, I don't know. I do know because it's a button clicking exercise. Yeah. But because it's a non-invasive survey, that level 2, well, they all are. Sorry, but they are. That's why we built out what we did, because what they're doing is easy for anybody to do. You just need to know what to look for. The algorithm can then provide you, just like when they look at it and whatever software they're using, they tick a box. They don't tick a box, they click a button and it populates. So they haven't had to put too much thought into it after identifying the issue. So they have a place, but I do think a level 3, well written, is better value for money.
I suppose for me, when I see it on a day-to-day basis, I probably would never recommend a level 3 survey customer when they look at it. So much covering themselves on a level 3. And that's maybe to do with the quality of the report. But I've said to most, let's say, first-time buyers, a level 2, you'll probably get more information actually than level 3. I've seen many of them recently, and it's just really, if you were to do everything in that report, you'd be spending thousands of pounds on experts to actually go and look at the electrics, look at the boiler, look at the plumbing, all that side of things, rather than putting their hat on and going, well, actually, this is a really good property to buy. Sometimes, again, they don't even phone the customer to to actually explain the report. And
Yeah.
I always say to anyone who's got one, make sure you call the surveyor because maybe there'll be less PC and actually tell you, no, this is actually a really good home. I've had to put these things in, but it's a good one.
But when you say level 2 and level 3, just so we're clear, the level 3 is the higher product. So that should be the one that is more inclusive, and that you should be able to rely on that to a greater degree. The level 2s, the level 2s for us being the ones that are, I'm not going to say cheap, but they are cheaper. But that's the one where we find a lot of caveats. And to be honest, you get it with level 3s as well. It's unfortunately it is a situation in surveying with the caveats and covering. It's a lot of the time it's put forward as I'm protecting the buyer. There's a very good element of protecting yourself at the same time.
Is there a way of, as for me as an advisor, differentiating the difference between a good company and a bad company? Because a lot of the lenders, they will actually recommend surveyor and they'll discount the price on the back of that for the customers. So instead of it being £400, maybe it'll be 200
surveyor.
Yeah, so maybe it'd be £250 and it might be through Connells or something like that. So it'd be great for me to know, like, how do you differentiate between the different qualities?
Yeah, I mean, that is to do it well, you just do a bit of research into the company, do a Google. The Google reviews are generally, like, ours are really strong. And I don't know what Connells are like, but I also imagine that they are definitely one of the companies that have their surveyors out doing two or more inspections a day. Maybe it's only 2, but they definitely wouldn't be like pushing for just 1. So I would be looking into, try and find someone a bit local. And we always like kind of say, if you're looking for a professional survey, try and get a surveyor that's local to the area. And kind of stick to the smaller ones, because if the smaller companies will have less overheads and there'll be less push to try and go out and do 2 a day. Like, what I would never ask any of our team to be out there doing, like, actually formulating 2 reports in a day, which is basically what the panel, and the larger companies do. It's not just 2 inspections and then they write up 2 the next day. It's like 2 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 2 Wednesday. There might be a little bit of slowdown somewhere to catch up, I hope. Because if they're knocking out 10 a week, it's really...
Yeah, I mean, my mission is to help estate agents and to give them tools, information, training, development, services, and point them in the right direction of things that I genuinely think could help them in the process, around the process. What would you say to an estate agent today that's thinking, sounds okay, but I'm not sure? So, obviously yours is to say, look, if you want to accept offers, you need to know what, I assume, you can afford to accept. You need to know what your full finances are before you commit to a transaction.
Yeah, mine's like an MOT. How many people do actually forget? They think they got an agreement in principle, that's all sorted, but how many times you look through someone's bank statements, you actually go down into and dig down into it, and you realize, well, that's not going to be right for the customer, and they actually, who they thought they were going to go with, they're not going to go with. So it's just that preparation. So when they are ready to pull the trigger, they know they're ready, rather than just in theory.
Yeah, and they're clear on their financials, so they can make an informed decision. And again, for yourself, Brett, I mean, I think what I'm trying to understand is that, so is it the vendor that would instruct you, or the agent, or the buyer? So
with Survey Shack, when we talk about the agent, what we're trying to do is educate them on pathology. Basically, we know that they want to do it. Some of them don't have the time, but that's why we've been able to streamline an inspection. We want agents probably not to even have to use the app after a period of time. Still recommend your vendor does it. I mean, that is a sensible thing to do. But when we came up with the idea several years ago, and I was talking to some agents about it, and I just ran it past them about wall structure, and I was like, I'm thinking about building this, etc. You guys know what the difference is between like a solid wall and a cavity wall, right? And one of them was like, yeah, one of them sounds hollow. And I was like, I thought I'd done a double take, because I was like, what do you mean sounds hollow. How would you? I mean, unless you're like Jeff Capes from the old days. I mean, you're not going to knock a wall and tell that it's hollow. So when I like pushed it up with further on like the visual, because it's quite clear how to tell visually the difference between a solid wall, that they didn't have it, and I was shocked at the time, and I thought, considering it's a, I would have thought it's like a requirement, to understand some of the construction methods.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting point that we're on at the minute, because I get a lot of people that come to me and say I'd love to be an estate agent, and I always ask them why, and then many say, well, I love property. And actually, if I'm being honest, if you love property, be a surveyor. If you love people, be an estate agent. So I think the best agents don't really know about the construction. They know about the client and they understand the client. So there's the differential straight away. And to help them with that, you're talking about a solution here whereby you don't need to know the ins and the outs. That's what this app does.
Yeah. Basically, it's a visual guide. And after using it several times, they're going to start picking things up. They're going to see about what different type, natural slate versus imitation slate. This, again, very visual cues as to tell the difference, wall types. And we don't want them to get away from the people side. Yeah. But if they want a better conversation with potential buyers and concerns that come up, and the seller from day one, I think they would be much more. I think a seller, I would be, and I've said this when I looked at selling our house a couple of years ago. I was like, unless they can tell me something about this property, like more so than tell what the, or what number 24 sold for 6 months ago, which I can find myself. I was like, that's how I'm going to start judging. I want to see, like you said, the back bit about property. Well, let's see how deep that is. What do they actually mean by that? So we give them a visual guide. They can do the app themselves. So we work with some partners where we will make them Survey Shack approved inspectors, and then they can upsell our reports. We are happy with those agents to a degree that they are competent, that we know that they're going to be choosing the right answers from the questions given. And then they can upsell those as well. So as well as actually improving their chances of getting that sale complete first time, they can if they want. And that works quite well for the independents because it gives them another, and it's again standing out. 5 agents. I know it's a bit too high. Say 3 agents going to value a property.
Three or more, isn't there?
Yeah, one of you are showing something more than the other 2. I think it's it's going to help you stand out, as well as all of the other efforts now that we are seeing from smart agents.
And so they would have the app. So if I'm an agent and I've downloaded Survey Shack, is it like a license thing that they have, and then they go out there, take pictures, upload it, and then you'll give them guidance, around what the feedback is, and is it then down to the agent to go back to the vendor, or which it probably will be, and say, well, look, this is saying X, this is saying Y,
So basically what we do is that we have a consumer version of the app where consumers buy it themselves. Then we built a pro version of the app, basically around agents and energy assessors. What we do with the estate agents, we give them access to pro. So that means they can do the inspection themselves, and that's on like a subscription model. Those that want to be able to sell the product have to come onto like a monthly membership, because we provide the professional indemnity for them. It's not on them; it's on us. So that's why we're
that earlier. Actually.
That's why we're really keen on making sure we don't want anyone to do it, and we won't. It's in our interest to make sure that they do it to a high standard, and in theirs. But so you have some agents who could upsell it themselves, or they can just ask for us to onboard their client. So we will then onboard the vendor. We send them an invite, say that we're working with their forward-thinking agent, and once the vendor has finished the assessment, they get a copy of the report, and we send a copy of the report to the estate agent, and then the agent can give them a call. They might not have been instructed at that point, but that is a different conversation than any of the others are going to be having when they call up to say, oh, I've seen the report as well. Do you want to have a talk about it? The other 2 agents, are not going to be having that conversation at this time.
What are you thinking, Barnaby, when you hear that?
Yeah, I think it will definitely hit a certain part of the market. There'll be certain age groups who will probably be very much averse to that, but there'll be a younger
Which
generation.
Come on,
Oh, I
name
said,
and shame the age.
We've marked them out as well.
over 50 probably. You'd be thinking.
Why?
I just think they're more tech phobic, so they don't really want to have to go through this process of taking pictures. That they'd rather someone physically come out. They'd rather spend, let's say, £600 to get someone out to do a report rather than do something on an app. But for the newer generation, which again it's advancing all the time, they're just more comfortable with doing something like that. And if you're saying it's going to cost them £50 to have just the basic package, then that would be a real selling point for them. And especially if you're educating them of why the benefits of having something like this. So I can see it being a real tool in the belt for agents to help get an instruction, can be that way, but more just prepare their customer, because if you've got a more prepared customer, then you're going to get that end goal more likely, which is what they want, because you don't want to be spending thousands of pounds but not actually getting to the end result, and you'll have more happy customers. That's the idea of it, but
lenders want their own survey for the value.
The survey means really not much. It just gives them an understanding of the fact is 80%, and these are statistics from Barclay, 80% are done through desktop now, from their side of things.
80% are doing desktop valuations
from
these
Barclays,
days.
yeah. So that means they're not even seeing the property.
No,
they're just looking at it from a database. So, and that's come about because of COVID, because they weren't physically able to do that. So they built these systems in place. So with a desktop, the lender doesn't care really. That shows how much they're not really caring about that, as long as it fits their profile of the value if they think it is. And then when they do a physical valuation, I had for my own remortgage, they came round and they basically spent 3 minutes in the property. They went
3 minutes.
I'm not even joking with that. They went downstairs, checked downstairs still there. Oh, you've got 3 bedrooms upstairs? Yeah, okay, great. And then they were gone. And he's just ticked his tablet, had a tablet, and just went do. So
Can you hear that, Brett? What goes through your mind?
I was aware of it. I mean, one of the problems we see for lenders as well, and I won't say who, but we are speaking with a big one in regards to they are aware more about that the condition causes renegotiations and fall throughs later, and that creates you more work and it creates them more work reoffering. And I'd love to know about some numbers in regards to the agents, in regards to how much the margin drops just from going from a clean sale to having to relist it with all of the double work involved and whatnot. So we really want to try and get as many. We call it the golden path, and I'm not too sure if we've made that up or I picked it up from the agents, or from the lender side. But that would pretty much be a clean for agents. It's basically offer through to completion, no aggro, and lenders want the same kind of situation. The cost that drops off once even goes into renegotiation, let alone fall through, where it really starts to spiral. Because
am I right in thinking lenders down valuation? It has to be. Isn't there like a protection around the percentage of is it 5%, 3%, 2%?
Honestly, I don't know. I couldn't tell you the working, because each lender is slightly different, and some they're more susceptible to having a down valuation. Not at the moment, no.
They're not fucking going out there and looking at them,
probably not. That's probably probably a big reason, for less down valuations. But there isn't just one rule.
No, see, the thing is, Brett, and I was interested to bring you on because it was only probably a year ago or so, and I was thinking, do you know what? You're right. There's so many problems that come up once the property's sold. It's normally to do with works that have been carried out that they haven't had planning permission for, or those kind of things, or damp and the usual sort of suspects. And a lot of work can go in to get to that point. So as a company, and you'll know this if you're watching, you'll be most estate agents don't charge anything up front. So they only get paid at the end. The average, I think, across the country is around 50% of what's listed to what actually exchanges and completes. That's horrendous, isn't it? So when you think about it, there's 50% of people go to market and don't actually get to complete on the sale of their home.
Yeah.
And you wonder, and you go, well, it's not the case for us. That's much higher than that, obviously. But I want to improve it still, right? Which is, one of the thoughts I had was, how would I position it with a vendor whereby they get their survey done on their home? Because that's what was first going through my mind. So they know everything about it. Now, I'm just going to give you a fresh example of something that's just happened today, where a lady that was on the show, Amy, has gone out and seen a property. It was the vendors wanted it on at $1.25 million, which I didn't believe was the right thing. They haven't completed the whole house yet, and so the house isn't fully finished. It's going to be a barn conversion. It's probably 80% of the way there. I'm like, you've got to wait. Oh, this was September last year. We're going to launch it. It'll be done by Christmas. There's no way it's going to get done by Christmas. But anyway, what are we now? Mid-Feb, and it's probably hardly further down the line. It's probably September this year that it'll be bloody ready for the market. So I said to him, look, get a surveyor around. Get your guidance on the price. Because I'm thinking they'll probably listen to her more than me in the nicest possible way, because vendors like to look at what's on the market, not what's sold, as their guidance. And we're talking £1 million, not 1.25. It's 250 quid, £250,000 worth of difference. So my thought around getting surveys done were twofold. One, is there any big problems that we need to be aware of that we can tackle or transparently highlight, have quotes for, map that out as part of being transparent for the sale of the home. The other big one is going, the price. Now, because an estate agent isn't a valuer.
Appraiser.
So, estate agents sit there in front of a client. If I said to a client, I can't give you the valuation on your home, they would be like, why? Because I'm not a surveyor. I'm not a surveyor. What we can discuss is the pricing strategies that could attract the best buyer. And if we get the best buyer, we will then find the best price. That's what we can talk about today. So my bit around the surveyor getting involved at the start was pricing. Because you've got an independent RICS surveyor saying, well, you're looking realistically in this region. And then the condition of the property. So, that's why I wanted you on the show, because I was thinking there's two big problems. One is the buyer and the seller's financials. I don't think people really dig deep enough before they go into the process. And there's obviously the price and the condition.
So, I mean, on the price with the red book valuation, which is how the RICS, Amy, did you say? Yeah. Amy would have been using to get to where she.
And what's a red book for the people that don't know what a red book is out there?
It's the rule set, really, of how you get to a
like
valuation.
An algorithm.
Well, it's. I'm sure the bigger ones do use an algorithm.
I bet they bloody do.
But there's a set of rules.
Yeah.
I've always so when you do that as a RIC surveyor or a surveyor with red book valuation, you're looking historically. So your finger's not on the pulse, and you're not allowed to take upfront. You're not allowed to, and you're not educated enough either, right? You don't know where the economy is going. You're not an economist, and that's generally one of the biggest drivers at the end of the day, right? So I do always find the valuation, if it was from a surveyor, is going to be less tempting than yours, because you not only agents will be
more optimistic.
They
want to win the business,
but you may also know of more property. You may have no property that has exchanged, or there's truth to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna but I think that one of the biggest problems for the agents as well now is like us as vendors and owners. We are also well aware of what we think our property is worth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think before even an agent turns up, most of them know.
9 out of 10.
Well, not even that they know, but they've already got a price in mind.
Oh yeah, totally.
So then it's like down to the agent of, are they willing to take it on at that or not? And that was one of the, again with us, it was like, right, if we can help the agent take the vendor's rose tinted glasses off for a bit, because owners, we look at it, our property.
Well, that's where I'm going with it. That's why I was thinking it's an independent source of information.
Exactly.
It's less, and I always say to agents, it shouldn't be you versus the vendor on price. It should be, what is the price strategy that's going to find your right buyer? What's the information we need to look at in order for us to find that point? And obviously having an independent style or type of report or analysis or information around the condition is only going to help that.
100%. I mean, and like you say, it's like almost independent. Yes, the agents that let the vendors do it could abuse it, right? And could...
How would they abuse it though?
As in, it'd be very obvious. Like they could just green light everything in the report. So the report comes back and you're like, wow, your property is perfect. Everything, you've got not a blemish here, which that doesn't happen in any property, apart from possibly a very well-built new build. And I stress well-built.
Yeah.
So, anything that's lived in, there's going to be something, right? So if we say to our agent partners, look, be honest with your owner. If they're going to do it properly. There's no point taking advantage of it and trying to make your property look better, and then we'll share it with the buyer, because we're not saying to the buyer at this point, rely on that report. What we're saying to the buyer is, look, this is what an honest opinion of the property in its condition from the vendor or the agent, which could be the better position, because then it's going to be more objective again. But by doing it, that buyer, let's keep with the vendor first. When they get that report back, they're going to see, it's like a cheat sheet. They're going to see what a buyer surveyor is going to say about their property. So then you could still, I would have thought the strategy would be, look, this is the price we had in mind. Do you still want to go with it, knowing that what we know from the report? Do you want to get any other estimates to back it up? Because there's nothing to say yet that by being upfront and honest, you're not going to get the same price or more when you get 5 interested parties based on actual condition insight versus 10 come through the door who, 2 of them or 3 of them are interested, but really they're just scoping it out, put an offer in, might chip it a little bit to start with. And then once the buyer's survey lands, they want more off, because the buyer's survey report shows X, Y, and Z.
I'm sure a lot of buyers rub their hands and maybe give those,
as far as I'm aware from my experience, it's very rare for a buyer to put a lower offer in and give a conditional reason as to why. As in, like, we're 15k below asking because I know that roof's going to take £7,000 worth of repair. I imagine what more likely happens is that 15k comes off the asking price initially, but it's completely forgotten about by the time the buyer's survey turns up, and now they want another 15k off because the roof's been mentioned as in not great repair. My thoughts on that is, well, unless you can't see that roof, if you can see that roof at the time of listing and time of your viewing, there's enough information out there now that means you could have made an educated decision on that.
So let's take that roof. The agents send the link, they go on or they go through the app, and the vendors, what do they do at that point to highlight the roof?
So the app works as pretty much, we're going to be your surveyor guide, and we provide a structured assessment and on the condition of the property. So it will help you pick out what type of roof covering you have.
Right.
So it could be slate, imitation
slate. Does it give you
slate.
like options
Yeah,
and stuff like that?
images, so you could start to identify the difference. And then it'll talk about the actual condition, and then it'll talk, for instance, talk about slopes. And from just those areas, before we get into further details like roof extensions and whatnot, but the algorithm will work out what a buyer's surveyor is going to say about a roof in that type of condition, in that construction. And then the report will come back and it will say, either it's similar to like the RICS levels in regards to like CR3, CR2, 1, apart from we did add an extra layer, because there's a lot of things that come up in a report which, unless it's not real, it's either green or red. Like if you haven't got building regs for it, it's going to go to red. If you have got building regs for it, it's going to go as green, just because the surveyor couldn't see the structure inside it. But the real tell is there a sign off for it. So we give that kind of information and say, get your ducks lined up. That's going to come up. You've got an extension or you had an alteration. Make sure you've got your building reg certificate, because that is definitely going to be flagged.
Okay. And Barnaby, you're listening to this. You're in the market 10 years. You're dealing with a lot of buyers, a lot of sellers. What are your thoughts on this? I'm not trying to get you to critique the product, by the way.
No, that's fine.
I'm still weighing it all up. But what I mean is I'm thinking, what I'm trying to think of, Brett and Barnaby, is that I think I get what you're trying to solve. I'm trying to think, what's your entry to? Is it the agent? Is it the vendor directly? Is it the buyer direct? Do you know what I mean? It's like, because you know what it's like when you're trying to serve loads of different people, you can't really get into any part of the market. But what are your thoughts on where do you think this could be used at its best?
The vendors right at the outset, that's I think where it's tailored for, it seems like, because it's minimizing the cost for them. So you're not saying you're going to spend £500 on a report. So it's a small bite-sized thing, but it's also saying, well, what we're going to be able to do is get you prepared the best way we can. So same way for me getting someone prepared, I don't work on the rosy figures of you're going to get 300,000 for your property. What happens if you got 25,000 less for your property? Yeah. Could you make that work? Could you borrow an extra 25,000? Would that extra £100 a month fit within your budget? Just giving that confidence. So it's just the confidence building exercise. So you're kind of thinking ahead of what's going to come. And it sounds really stupid, but how many times I see people haven't got their guarantees sorted. They haven't got their warranties. They haven't got the sign-offs from the building side of things, that if they have done an extension, they sound silly, but they add weeks and weeks to the process they do. So all of a sudden, you've got, instead of a 3-month, you've got a 4-month process.
You said it at the start, right? Which is, it's almost like slow down to speed up. And I think what you're both saying is that actually, let's get everything done before you list. Let's get all of the information together. Let's make sure that we've almost can see any red flags or on the report potentially that would follow, and address it now. And I think that is an approach that proactive top performing agents are looking at, because they will invest thousands of pounds into a journey with a client, and it gets to the point where this survey comes in or this problem comes up and they haven't foreseen it, and then that becomes a problem. It's normally a trust issue, right? Because one of the biggest things when buyers see a survey report and they see the problems in it, they'll think, what? I wonder if the vendor knew about this, and all of a sudden there's trusts being broken, rather than going right at the front end and saying, well, look, this has come up. These are the elements. We've had quotes. This is what it's going to look like. And you're in a position of real strength then going forward with price.
Because typically when it does come up is right at the death. Yeah. Right at the last moment it comes up, and that's when
a lot of people still get surveys towards the end, don't they?
They do, and it's maybe poor advice, or maybe just lack of just being prepared and knowing when you should do it in the process. But it can happen right at the end, and then what happens is, as you said, that trust. You think, what is there anything else I'm missing? Is there? So that one issue that could just be that one issue turns into a bit of animosity, to the point where actually it's £100 where someone said they were going to leave the dishwasher. And
well, look, but there's an agent I work with, and his business, they'll list 10 houses, complete on 8. They have got a brilliant conversion rate. So look, and do you know what? It's because of the time they take, the preparation. They go to market with block appointments. They vet everything. They do everything. They tick every box, and they're well prepared. And to be honest, it makes complete sense to us sitting here today. When you're in the lounge and the vendor's going, well, I want to get on the market quick, it's then the ability to be able to explain those reasonings and educate them around those areas. We're going to come away from that little bit of detail. You kind of got your point across today, Brett. It's good. And Barnaby, from you being in business now on your own, there's a lot of people in estate agency that are considering the pathway of maybe going self-employed, and you've done it as a mortgage advisor. Tell us a little bit about what that's been like for you.
It's been a real journey, only even in 6 months. And I've spoke to you about it on numerous occasions, and I'm really grateful I've done it. But what you just have to be very reflective, and you have to just take stock each month that goes by at what really went well and how you can improve on that. But I've got some really great relationships with the estate agent side of things, but also with existing customers. So I'm really lucky there, where I'm not starting from scratch. But it wasn't going into the unknown, if that makes sense. I know that I do the job really well, so it's just putting that across to customers and also to agents. My job is to educate them of why it's really important for customers to be financially prepared. It will be the difference between being able to take the next steps or not. The amount of first-time buyers who are on the market now, I don't know the exact statistic, but I think it's over 60% of sales being agreed are first-time buyers in the market at the current time. And it might even be slightly higher than that. But I think,
why is that? Because I mean, the layman would be thinking, well, house prices are really high. If you need 10% deposit, if the average price in our area is about 350, 400,000, for argument's sake, that's 40 grand that someone's got to find. No one's got that kind of money in the back. I'm just giving you
yeah. Because there are a lot of incentives now to help first-time buyers get onto the market with even as little as no deposit. So deposit maybe was a barrier to entry, and it's become less and less. But also, you've got a lot of customers. Well, most customers are aspirational. They want their own home. They don't want to be renting, and they want to be able to feel like it's a space that they can call home. And when it comes to the first time buyers, they actually got used to it. But we get used to things very quickly. We do as a human society, So the same thing with interest rates. People who are coming off these rates, there's a bit of a shock to them. But first time buyers, that's all they've known. That's all they've known. 4%, 5%.
Rose rapidly.
Yes.
3 or 4 years
so
ago.
That was the period where, as agents, I know there was a whole education of to reassess where the market was, but also for me as an advisor, it's just educating customers that actually over the last 20 years, it's actually not a bad rate where rates are, but they've been used to, sub 2% rates. And all of a sudden you're saying, well, they're in the mid 5. It's quite a shock to the system, and then people are like, well, maybe we'll wait, or maybe, and it even happened with the budget recently. How many houses now seem to be coming on because not been as bad as maybe they first thought, but it's that, or we'll wait and see. But January's come, and I've just noticed. And people have probably been planning this not for 6 months, maybe 2 years, and now they're saying, right, now is the right time to actually take the next.
And do you see that similar sentiment in the market yourself, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, and it's particularly interesting about the budget side of it, because, like I mentioned earlier on the other business, we have like a party wall arm, so that has blown up since Christmas, and basically, that I would have put the reason people were panicking, weren't they, coming into the budget? So when these things normally happen, you start to think about expanding what you have more than taking the change and having to, incur costs. So I think if you look at how long it usually takes for planning permission to come through, and some of my colleagues like outside have also seen a real blow up in party wall work. So I think, people were cautious, got all their plans in. I don't think the budget was as bad as it, people were making out. I'm always the optimist, but I think we'll probably see this maybe for another couple more months where this planning permission comes through, and then hopefully we'll start seeing a movement back into buying. But I am hearing like agents are relatively quiet in and around us. So, and
you're
over
in
West
Richmond,
London, yeah,
sort of area. So just looking at your journey into business, then, how long did you say you've been?
So several years I've been a surveyor.
Okay.
I have been self-employed for 20 odd years now, probably longer.
So what were you doing before surveying?
I was a derivatives trader and a risk
What?
analyst. I traded government bonds, interest rate products. So, the Christmas adage of like the films that come on and whatnot. So I started on the life floor in London when I was 16, and I progressed from there. I started trading in my very early 20s, and I was acquiring and disposing of property quite a lot, and that's how, when you become interested in property, that was how it really happened for me. I was interested in property to a degree. It got to a degree where I was more fixated on property than I was on trading, and that's how I made the shift into surveying, because I probably wasn't as much of a people person as I am now back then, because I'd gone from a career where I had no clients and I was very focused. So it would have been hard to become an agent straight away on that.
Well, what's been sort of running your business then? What's been the biggest challenge for you in the several years of doing that?
I've had many. So on the trading side was always about risk and personality traits. I think I've mentioned this with others, but it was very demanding emotionally. I was only as happy as my day. If I had a good day, I was the greatest person to be around. If I had a bad day, everyone knew.
You rode the roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, and I say everyone knew it, they didn't, because I would just go home and close myself off until I could get back into that trading floor and try to undo the damage I'd done the day before. But yeah, so that wore thin after several years. So, I think, I would say about a young man's game. I don't want to go too far off of estate agents.
No, that's fine. It was all business. I mean, business relation and understanding here, really.
Yeah, it was incredibly. I mean, at the early days, we were amazing. We were all focused. The cohort that we were in. I wasn't a graduate. I was taken onto a graduate degree course because of my previous experience, but all of the others were, and we were all very focused, and we had a great time for several years. But then we grew up, people had families, their demands, requirements changed, and the responsibilities. So, after, there's only so many times you could go home and just close doors and not talk to people. I don't think it's not conducive to having being a nice person, to be honest. So when the time came, I was glad to make the leap. I was ready for it. I'd done, like I say, I was there. I left school at 16, and I, way into my 30s before I actually quit.
Yeah. And then since running a survey shop, do you speak to a lot of agents about the product?
So we launched a consumer product early last year. So 2025 we launched. Yeah, so we launched a consumer product first, and we was always bringing it up via our other surveying company, Richmond Futures, which is a traditional surveying company. So that was why we knew there was a gap, because I was speaking to the buyers who were doing exactly what we've been talking about, about to exaggerate a report to get more money off the property. And equally, I was speaking to vendors that I was leaving their property, and they was wondering what's the report going to say?
Yeah.
As well as the agents as well, though. You go and drop the keys in. Yeah, you drop the keys, and the agent's
you're looking for clues.
Yeah, how did it go? You're like, not going to tell you. No, you would try and get something across, but all of that cloak and dagger just didn't. I think it's not conducive to
That's
really.
That's a really good point. I think there's an emotional understanding there that for everybody involved, the uncertainty there is unnecessary.
Exactly, it is, and that's how you got to bring it to open it up, more honesty, and not honesty. No one's trying to be doing it intentionally, but by sharing it, we can.
But there aren't many problems with houses that can't be solved.
None.
That's the bloody point.
That's
when I hear people
say.
Pulling out of a house purchase, and their reasoning is, well, it's because it's got damp, or it's got this, it's got that, and you're like, the question I always ask them is, why do you buy the property in the first place? What was it that drew you? And you go through all of that again, and you bring their emotion back to the house, because I think it's because they've lost a little bit of trust. That's what happens. It's not the actual thing itself. I think they start to wonder, what else?
Downward spiral.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So I think what you're positioning today and with us today has been really good and helpful for the viewers who are mainly estate agents, and to consider that. And where would they be best finding you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. or via our website, which is www.survey-shack.com, and there's a contact us page. There's a pro page specific, so feel free to reach out via that or LinkedIn.
And Barnaby, it's a good time for me to say how proud I am of you, by the way, because, when I first met you, how many years ago now?
4 years.
4 years ago. I remember when I met you, and Barnaby's exceptionally humble, by the way. And when you're in business and you pass someone that you know to someone else as a recommendation or a referral, sometimes you'll think, oh, I hope that person's going to have done the work. When you pass them to Barnaby, it immediately it disappears. You don't even have to think about it or worry about it, because you just know he's going to do an amazing job, and that's because he genuinely cares. And I think what I'm hearing from both of you today is you've got a genuine care for improving the industry and the way in which we operate, and you've done really well, mate. And he's even on camera now. And by the way, he hated being on camera a little while ago, so getting him on here today was just my way of acknowledging that. You coming out of your comfort zone there. I wish you all the best. Thank you for being on the show today for this special around improving the process at the earliest stage in the property cycle. And I'll see you on the next one.